I shall not cause harm to any vehicle nor the personal contents thereof, nor through inaction let that vehicle or the personal contents thereof come to harm. It's what I call the repo code, kid.
Truly radical filmmakers are few and far between, especially working in America in the modern era. But Alex Cox is definitely a radical filmmaker. Born in Liverpool, he originally studied law at Oxford in the early 1970s, but switched to studying radio, film, and TV at Bristol University. He then moved to Los Angeles to attend film school at UCLA. He has been called British cinema's oldest enfant terrible, but his first films were made in America. First the short film Edge City while at UCLA, and then the cult classic Repo Man, envisioned as a film school project with a budget of $70,000. Repo Man has been hailed as one of the first truly modern independent films, a decade before the independent film gold rush of the 1990s. Alex wrote the screenplay, directed, made a cameo, and produced it with Edge City Productions, a film production company started by Alex and his UCLA friends. Michael Nesmith of the Monkees got involved as an executive producer, allowing for a budget of $1.5 million and a deal with Universal. An interesting mix of big names, and Alex's collaborators were cast in Repo Man. Emilio Estevez was brought on board as a billable name for the studio, Harry Dean Stanton, Olivia Barash, Cy Richardson, Tracy Walter, and future collaborators of Alex's like Dick Rude and Xander Schloss.
You know the way everybody's into weirdness right now? Books in all the supermarkets about Bermuda triangles, UFOs, how the Mayans invented television, that kind of thing.
I don't read them books.
Well, the way I see it, it's exactly the same. There ain't no difference between a flying saucer and a time machine.
The film was shot by the Dutch cinematographer Robbie Muller as he awaited production to start on Wim Wenders' Paris, Texas. Repo Man's soundtrack took from the punk scene in California at the time, including Black Flag, Suicidal Tendencies, and the Circle Jerks, who make an appearance as a lounge band. And after Iggy Pop's manager viewed the film, he even volunteered a title song for the film. Alex's reputation took off after Repo Man became a classic of Reagan-era dystopia. His next film, Sid and Nancy, originally called Love Kills, was a biopic about the relationship between Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen, starring a young Gary Oldman and Chloe Webb. The film had a soundtrack composed by Joe Strummer, Pray for Rain, and the Pogues. It was about mutual destruction that was wrought by a drug-fueled relationship. The ways that heroin destroyed not only Sid and Nancy's lives, but the wider British anarchist movement and the left of the 1970s in general, and featured a Vietnam vet played by Cy Richardson, making the point that Sid Vicious could have been selling healthy anarchy, but allowed smack to control him.
You guys got no right to be strung out on that stuff. You could be selling healthy anarchy. But long as you ask, you be full of shit.
Next, Alex helmed two projects. First, the movie Straight to Hell, featuring an insane array of musical guests and frequent collaborators, Xander Berkeley, Xander Schloss, Joe Strummer, Cy Richardson, Shane McGowan of the Pogues, Dick Rude, Dennis Hopper, Jim Jarmusch, Elvis Costello, Courtney Love, Grace Jones. This film features one of my favorite scenes in any Alex Cox film, where this huge array of musical luminaries and famous character actors point guns at Xander Schloss and make him sing his Wiener song.
Let's make that Wiener kid sing his song. Wanna?
In a Western parody, which was actually used to help finance a trip to film the movie Walker starring Ed Harris in war-torn Nicaragua in the midst of the Sandinista-Contra War, a shot across the bow of American imperialism during the Reagan administration, directly comparing Walker's famous filibuster to the modern funding of the Contra terrorists. Cox even had Sandinistas work on the film. This was a bridge too far for a Hollywood that has always worked hand in glove with American imperialism. And Alex was blacklisted, excoriated in the press, and has not been able to work with Hollywood studios since. Alex moved to working in Mexico, releasing the film Highway Patrolman in 1991. At the time, the film was given an extremely limited distribution in the US, despite some critics hailing it as his best film. And was invited by the BBC to direct an adaptation of Jorge Luis Borges' Death in the Compass in 1992. Alex Cox has since been working in micro-budget filmmaking, crowdfunding films, as we're going to talk about tonight, and often using budgets of less than $100,000. Searchers 2.0, Repo Chick, Build a Galactic Hero, and Tombstone Rashomon have all been funded this way. In 1988, Alex also hosted the BBC show Movie Drome, introducing 141 films between 1988 and 1994. a resource that I have definitely used early on in this podcast, as many of the episodes and intros are now available on YouTube.
Ed Harris's performance is contained, fixated, and charismatic enough to make sense of Walker's constant switching along the spectrum from liberator to dictator. Cox's direction does a lot of switching of its own, along the spectrum from Peckinpah westerns to the apocalyptic scenarios of Hodorowski and the visionary excesses of Herzog. Closer to home, Walker may have been intended as a political cut-up on Lester lines that unfortunately came out as Carry-On Contras. Yeah!
Alex has also been a prolific writer with books including X Films, True Confessions of a Radical Filmmaker, 10,000 Ways to Die, a director's take on the spaghetti western, and Alex Cox's Introduction to Film, a director's perspective, among many others, and has been a professor at the University of Colorado Boulder. Tonight we're talking to Alex about his last film, a western version of Nikolai Gogol's Dead Souls, which he is currently fundraising for on Kickstarter. Link for the Kickstarter campaign, which ends on July 26, is in the description, as well as his career, filmmaking style, the soundtracks he's used, and his work in the punk scene, and the state of filmmaking today.